most of my clients have pretty complex trauma presentations. So when I learned IFS, immediately I was sitting in weekend 1 of level 1 training and thinking like, oh, why wouldn't you just add BLS to that? Why wouldn't you just add BLS? And I would ask a lot of questions of my trainers, who eventually were very compassionately saying, please stop asking us about EMDR, because this is not an EMDR training. So I said, fine, I'll make my own protocol. And so that's what I did. I've learned through working with my clients, my own work. I do run consultation groups, and I learned so much from the therapists that show up there and share their compelling stories of the work that they've done with their clients. So I'm really appreciative of that. So let me go ahead and get into this PowerPoint, and give me just a second to get my screen working. Okay, so starting with why even integrate? So what I have found, as probably many of you have found, is EMDR can be really hard for some clients. For some clients, it works textbook. I mean, they just find the negative cognition and the memory, and they reprocess through it. And it is just like Francine wrote about in her book. And it is just perfection, chef's kiss. I love it. It goes so smoothly. Then there are other clients where, I mean, for the life of me, I can't get them into phase 4. Like, it is just one block after another, one barrier after another. We talk about talking about it. We talk about wanting to get into phase 4, and we just can't get there. Or we get into phase 4 and there's so many blocks that show up, blocking beliefs, that we can't really get anywhere. And I would get frustrated, just like my client would get frustrated. And when I learned IFS, it unlocked all of that for me. And so what I have realized is that we were not working with the client's protective system. I personally was working against it. I was sort of combating it and trying to rush them into or force them into phase 4 reprocessing, when their system was saying in one way or another, we're not ready, either through blocked processing or the inability to get into phase 4. So I find that integrating IFS unlocks a lot of that. So when you have clients that show up with really complex trauma, especially attachment-based trauma, or they have what I now define as like well-protected systems, like they're very guarded, there's just difficulty sort of getting through the external barrier. Sometimes they can feel tangible that there's a barrier up there. And that for clients that just need more support before you can get them into phase 4, IFS provides the answer to all of that. IFS is really, really compassionate and very permission focused. That is its whole shtick, I feel like, in one sentence, is it's very, very focused on the therapist having a compassionate approach, us supporting our client and being compassionate with their parts, and really getting overt permission. In EMDR, I feel like a lot of times we get covert permission. Like, there's an understanding that we find the negative belief and we get the memory, and okay, we're going to move into phase 4 and we're going to reprocess it. But it's not a requirement in EMDR that we get overt permission from the client system. And IFS, like, that's its whole thing. So it adds this extra layer of, again, compassion, permission, safety, agency for the client before we get into doing the heavy trauma work of phase 4. So I'm going to talk a little bit about